for a seat. I'm not sure I'm going to need this microphone. Let me try it without the microphone. What? I couldn't hear you.
I'm going to need it. Yeah, I'll need it.
I'm going to be on television, so I got to use the microphone. No choice. No choice. Well, first of all, welcome. This is my 6th State of the City address, and welcome. Thank you for coming. I hope that you are enlightened and learned something here tonight. We'll go through in a little bit different format. I change the format a little bit every year, but we'll go through it. And I thought it was very appropriate to start out with a picture of what City Hall is now. It's what used to be our library and then became a few years ago our Development Services Center. And we figured out last year that we didn't need a City Hall separate from a Development Services Center. The Development Services Center had been upgraded and had all the modern facilities, and now everybody's in that one facility. And as you can see from the picture, it is just part of this wonderful community with El Toro in the background, and it's really nice to be there, to have everybody together, working together. And I'm going to dedicate the theme of my presentation this evening to the staff, which you'll hear about in just a few minutes. So let me tell you what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to start with some recognitions, and then I want to kind of brag about the community we live in. Morgan Hill is a great place, and we need to talk about that. So what are the indicators? Where are we as opposed to where we were? How are we doing financially? Those kind of things. I want to kind of just give you some index kind of things that maybe pinpoint where we are. What are the highlights of what we've done over the past year or so since we were here last year? And then instead of saying, what's our new direction, we don't have a new direction. We have ongoing directions. We're working on a whole bunch of things. We're making a lot of great progress on a whole bunch of things, and we'll talk about all that. But most of the things that we're working on are ongoing. You have as a handout tonight, and you don't need to read it here, but you have as a handout this evening a lot of detail on what our goals and strategies for meeting those goals are. What I'm going to try to do is just present kind of pictorially some of the highlights of all that. Wanted to take a little bit at the end. We'll go through some things in the presentation where I would love to stop the presentation and reach out to you, the audience, and say, what do you think about this, about what I just talked about? Would you rather do it this way? Would you rather do it that way? And that's all what we really want to promote for next year, is having more engagement with the community. So I kind of want to tease you on some of those, some of the kinds of questions that would come up. So we'll talk about that a little at the end, and then we'll open it to questions, but we'll have some refreshments in the other room, some cookies, and we can go from there. I'm going to violate protocol. Protocol always says, if the President of the United States was here, I probably would definitely introduce him first. But, I'm supposed to start with the highest elected officials and work down. I want to go the opposite way. But before I do that, there's one kind of protocol thing that I better do. And that's to introduce my wife and my support person. I'll tell you a story. Renee's here from the leadership class that's going on this year, and they had a session last week where we talked about how does the city government work and all that. And we had a session at the end of the day on how to get elected. And the one thing that I said before anything else is, don't ever think about running for office if you don't have the support of your immediate circle, the people that are closest to you, your family, whatever. And I take that to heart, and I am very, very thankful that I've always had the total dedication and support of my wife and the rest of my immediate family. So I want to do it. But we've survived a pretty tricky year. economy didn't turn around like we thought it might turn around quickly, and it looks like it's not going to turn around in any kind of rapid fashion at all. I'll show you later on the projections on how we do think it's going to turn around. But we have survived that, and we've come through just in flying colors at the city because of the people that we have working for us at the city. So I thought it would be very appropriate to work our way up this year. I always try to recognize, on behalf of the entire city staff, representation of the entire city staff, the people who have been declared the employees of the year by the city. And on this slide we have Kat Corrales on the left, and on the right we have Mario Iglesias. Mario is the supervisor of our utilities operations department. Kat works in community development and administrative support there. They're just delightful employees, really add to the whole environment that we have. You see that Kat just loves working with the people that she works with, and always excited and effusive. Mario is very, very customer service oriented. You can tell by the quote he has up there that he loves the reaction of being able to please his audience and so forth. So those are our employees. A couple of the employees that I introduced in their new positions last year, one of them is here with us tonight, Chief David Swing, and the other is the leader of our community development department, Leslie Little. They were brand new last year, and we talked and welcomed them. I thought I'd show their picture again because 1 year later, it's incredible what they have accomplished in terms of David Swing, I'll just say briefly, has faced a lot of interesting eventualities that have taken place within the city. Challenges, I would say, as an understatement to the police department that he is leading, and has done a fantastic job of doing that. Leslie was faced with the challenge of coming in and taking over what was then our Development Services Center, all of our public works operation, our planning and building departments, and making a cohesive whole out of that. And if you come to City Hall now, you will see that it is a cohesive whole, and it's just a delightful place to be, because that group is all together working hand in hand and so forth. So they've made fantastic progress. Of course, the leaders that we have, and they're both here with us tonight, is our city attorney on the left, Danny Wan, and our city manager, Ed Tweeds, who make sure that that whole operation of the city and the city staff is going forward in the right direction and keeping us out of legal problems. And but we'll talk a little later about the challenges we faced with the financial things that have come to us, and how both of these people, as well as the rest of the entire city staff, have come together to navigate kind of tricky waters, if you will. We, of course, still have our supporting commissions, the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Planning Commission, the Library, Culture and Arts Commission, the Corporation Yard Commission, which Roger Knopf heads. It only meets once a year, but it's still an ongoing thing. Yeah. And our Youth Action Council. Our Youth Action Council doing just a fantastic job of putting on the annual Youth Leadership Morgan Hill program, and they'll be coming up in April, I believe, with their senior ball, where they put on a dance and dinner for the senior citizens within the community, and do a great job of really having multi-generational things going on. They're dancing with them and so forth. My colleagues on the City Council, Marilyn Liebers and Larry Carr and Gordon Siebert, are here with us tonight. Our other colleague, Rich Constantine, is on duty. He is a firefighter for the City of San Jose, and he is on duty tonight and wanted me to express his regrets that he couldn't be with us here tonight. But we have a fantastic City Council. Really proud to serve with all of them. It's just a great experience that when you read some of the headlines from what's going on in some other cities around here and those kind of things, and then have the opportunity to serve with people that are totally respectful of each other, totally supportive of each other, always willing to express an opinion, whether it agrees with yours or disagrees with yours, and yet can go forward in concert from there and accomplish what the city's trying to accomplish. So I'm very proud to be serving with all of them. And then we have all of the other agencies that we have to deal with. So you see a very busy chart here. Chief Steve Woodell is here from the South County Fire. We have from Elizabeth from Mike Wasserman's office is here with us tonight as well. And John McKay was here from the Planning Commission. There he is, okay. And I'm sure I'll miss somebody if I keep going on. I put down under McNerney, who is our current Congress member. He will be, it's fairly presumptive, I guess, that Zoe Lofgren will get elected, but I'm not sure that she even has any opposition. But the new districting would put her as our new Congress member. And for Bill Monning, the new districting, and again, Luis Alejo does not have any opposition as of yet. That doesn't mean that he won't, but it looks pretty sure that Luis Alejo will be our representative. And what this means for Luis Alejo and Bill Monning, who looks likely to be elected to our Senate, we will be represented by the same assemblyman and the same state senator as the city of Gilroy, which is a giant step forward and a real benefit, I think, of the redistricting that took place. Okay, I said I wanted to brag a little about the city, and it's just, why are we here? Why are we in the city of Morgan Hill? I don't think that anybody is here because they're, they can't afford to live anyplace else, or it's just, they have to be here in any way, shape, or form. The people that are here because they want to be here. This is where they want to live. They love the Morgan Hill quality of life. They love being here. And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind as we face challenges going forward. We have just a wonderful, beautiful community. And we have wonderful people that live here, that love to live here, that love to help improve the community and so forth. So we should always keep that in mind as we go forward. I spent a long time in my presentation last year going over and establishing what I thought were the community values of the community of Morgan Hill. And I'm just reviewing them quickly here because I think these also are reasons why the quality of life in Morgan Hill is so high, because we do have these values. We are caring and supportive not only of each other, but of our community. We truly do value both our youth and seniors, and I'll say more about that through the presentation. We value safety. We want to have a safe community, and we are a safe community, and I'll show you that. We are very much into health and recreation. We like to get our exercise. We like the opportunities that are presented at our aquatic center, our outdoor sports complex, our indoor recreation center, Centennial Recreation Center. We are ethical. We have an ethics policy within the city, but I think those values are shared by the entire community. Respectful of each other. We talked about that on the council, but I think as a community we have a high degree of respect for each other as well. We have pride and ownership in our community. Everybody that lives here not only is enjoying the quality of life here, but they're willing to put effort forward to make the community even better, and we appreciate that. And we've talked, as we went through the year, we put a lot of emphasis last year on youth, and we talked about building assets. We coupled with this Morgan Hill Unified School District to reassert that we are asset builders, building assets in our youth. And in looking to build the community values that I showed you here, I can tie each one of those to the assets in youth. So those assets are really community-wide assets, I think. And I think we can all kind of look at that as we go forward, building assets with youth to help build the assets of the community as well. Okay, so I showed you some indicators, and let me start by saying, I think the prime thing that drives the city of Morgan Hill, the services supplied by the city of Morgan Hill, is its income. And its income or the city of Morgan Hill, there's two primary sources. So that's what I'm going to show you first. We're going to start with sales tax. Sales tax is extremely important. It is the #1 source of revenue for the city of Morgan Hill. And what you see there is we had a dreadful downturn in 2007, 2008 that hit bottom in 2009, 2010, and you see actual increases that are projected forward now. So sales tax is coming back, and that is a great trend. We need that. That is also the reason that when people talk about shop Morgan Hill, shop local, you know, of the 8.25, excuse me, fell back to 8.25. Of the 8.25 cents that you pay for every dollar in sales tax, 1 cent of that comes to the city of Morgan Hill. So the Honda dealer's open, the Ford dealer's open, there'll be a Kenworth truck dealership open soon. Go out and buy 6 or 7 cars, 2 trucks. That'll all help a lot. Property tax is the second major source of income for the city of Morgan Hill. And that also, you can see that it dipped as property values went down. And now we're projecting, you know, slight increases going into the future. It's just barely coming up right now because the price of the value of the existing properties have gone down so much that a whole bunch of new construction, and we are very fortunate to have a lot of new construction going on now, but it doesn't boost it a whole bunch. It does boost it some, so that looks positive going forward as well. Now this is an indicator that really is just a static point in time, but I think it's always worth pointing out. I told you that the major sources of income in Morgan Hill are sales tax and property tax. We also have a transient occupancy tax. When people stay at our hotels, we get some of the money that they pay for the transient occupancy tax. And we also get some, if you have a business here, you have a business license, so there's business license income. This says 5 major sources, and I only named 4. Okay, so Morgan Hill does not have what's called a utility users tax. When you get your PG&E bill or your water bill or whatever, you have no tax associated with that goes to the city of Morgan Hill. Gilroy has that. Most of these cities have that. I think there's only 4 cities that do not have that, of the cities in Santa Clara County. But this shows you that Morgan Hill is very much toward the bottom of the scale in terms of the amount of city income per resident in the city of Morgan Hill. It's very much toward the bottom. The other 2 that are close to it at the bottom are Montserino and Saratoga, and both of them do not fund their fire services. Their fire services are funded separately, so that makes a huge difference. The Morgan Hill value, I should point out, will go up as we ease away from redevelopment, because the money that went into redevelopment, some of it will come back to the city. That will get us up from maybe $300 to $330 or $340 per resident per capita income, but still way toward the bottom of the scale. So it's just, you know, as we go forward and look at some of the financial challenges that we face, we should, you know, recognize where we are on the scale of income in cities within our county. Violent crime, just a real quick flash of some statistics over time. It's gone down from 2009 to 2011, from 89 to less than half of that in terms of violent crime. That's a very positive kind of statistic that says we are reducing crime. That's one of our major goals. Of course, we did have 1 serious murder last year, and 1 we recognize is way too many. That was extremely unfortunate, but the overall trend of the violent crime is down, and you know, we are a safe community. It's a value, and we're sticking to that value. This is kind of an indicator on commercial space. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's fairly good news. If you look down at the retail, you know, we really decreased. We absorbed 100,000 square feet of retail. You heard that Hobby Lobby is coming in. That took over the urban space. What you see there also on the R&D space is almost 500,000. That's almost half of our vacancy is the R&D space. One building in that R&D space is half of that vacancy. That's the old Hospira site. So if we can get somebody, anybody here want to come move a business into the Hospira site, it's available. That could really help on that. But these are positive. The absorption is going in the right direction. So highlights, looking back, what great things have happened over the last year. Well, here's some great things. We completed the Tate Avenue overpass. That's in the upper left-hand corner. And I took these photographs on, I think, last Saturday. And I went over from the Tate Avenue overpass. I drove down to the Butterfield extension. So the one on the right is the Butterfield extension. And when I was walking out there to take the photograph, a car came down. I didn't know it was open. I don't think it's open yet, but people are driving on it. I had to wait for the car to go by. The one on the bottom is the new Dunn Avenue, West Dunn, right over here. Still with the telephone poles up there, you see the last step is kind of underway right now, and that's the undergrounding of the utilities. So within a month or two, I think you'll see that it really will look a lot nicer with those poles down and totally completed. The restaurants in Morgan Hill are phenomenal. We have, I understand in downtown, there's 1,500 seats of restaurant space. And I also understand that on Valentine's night, February 14th, there wasn't an empty seat in town. That is phenomenal. And here are some of the new ones, that some are fairly recent, some that have opened in the last year. And a fantastic reputation for these restaurants. A lot of people coming down and from out of town and having problems parking, which is good news and bad news. But housing has picked up. The upper left, that's a portable unit that we refurbished. It's the corner of Bright and Hale. It's the Crossings project, and next Wednesday we will have a formal opening or dedication of that project. But that's really was heading into the total blighted kind of condition, and was really totally refurbished and back online now. We have a couple of senior units. The same company, UHC, I think, is the company that refurbished the Crossings, also is doing the senior project below it, the Horizons project, that's over off Central Avenue, right off Monterey. We have another senior project, Westmont of Morgan Hill, that was maybe constructed a year ago, but it didn't open until well into 2011. And then some market rate projects. San Savino is going lickety-split down right off of Main Avenue, and the Milano project is over on Condon, right near the little shopping center off Condon and Dunn, behind there. So housing is going great. And the upper left project is one affordable project, but there's another affordable project that we're really kind of proud of and want to brag a little about, because again, it features fantastic employees of the city, Morgan Hill. H4H, Habitat for Humanity is over here off Dunn on Corley Drive, and that's where that sweat equity, a lot of volunteer labor comes in to build the houses. And we had a lot of people from here in Morgan Hill that were involved in the construction of these. And we have Joey and Deborah Pacheco and their family. Joey works in our, again, in our utilities maintenance department. And Ishmael and Letty Montez are also, he's in the parks maintenance department, and he got one of the units as well. So a fantastic, affordable kind of project that really benefited the city in many ways. Just some other miscellaneous things. The Honda store, after much anticipation and quite a long wait, finally opened. It's going strong now. Part of the space that was taken up by the Flex Academy, the charter school that's now over behind where Mervin's used to be. We have our solar online at the CRC, and we're going ahead with it at the police department as well as the aquatic center. And then we started something last year called Coffee with the Mayor, and we're going to keep that going as well. Monthly or every 6 weeks or so, having coffee so that there's total openness. You can come talk about a lot of things, and a little later on, we'll suggest some of the things you might want to come talk about. This is a fantastic story. This is one of those, you know, you say win-win, and then you say win-win-win, and this is one of those where there's a whole bunch of wins here. A couple of years ago, Steve Reimer, our Community Services and Recreation Director, and myself were on a task force looking for what can we do for the seniors? How do we sustain the seniors? We don't want to cut back any of the services we now provide for the seniors, so what can we do to sustain that? And kind of coming out of that was, you know, we're going to need some help. We can't do it all ourselves. The city just cannot afford to keep going, so we need to figure out something else. So a group of people got together, formed a nonprofit under the umbrella of the Morgan Hill Community Foundation to support the senior center. Went out and put on some functions last year. They had a casino night, and they decided they institute a bingo program. So the bingo program they instituted was here at the community center. You'll remember that the city had to close down the community center on Monday and Tuesday. We couldn't afford to keep it open. But now with a new renter coming in to use it every Tuesday night, we could afford to keep the community center open now on Tuesdays. So it's now open on Tuesdays, so the community wins because they have access to the center. The seniors win because they have an income stream from the bingo. The bingo players win because they have a place to go on Tuesday night and have a great time, and everybody wins. It's really great. We had an objective last year that we wanted to promote diversity within the community, and we asked our Library, Culture, and Arts Commission, together with our sister city, say that right, sister city committee to put on a function to really celebrate the diversity within the community. And they did a fantastic job. There's some of the scenes from that. It was September 4th of last year out here at the amphitheater, and very successful. I think it can build and become even more successful, so there are plans to carry it forward. The Library, Culture, and Arts Commission is looking at how do we organize for this year, so things are going forward there as well. So those are some of the highlights of what's been going on the last year, and we'll keep going into, you know, there's some things that are partially done and going forward, not a whole bunch of new things. Our whole theme, our whole fear last year when we talked about the state of the city was that we could possibly get our redevelopment agency crushed by that. I think I called it the 2,000 or maybe even the 3,000 pound gorilla. Was just going to stomp his paw on the city of Morgan Hill, and we were in danger of losing our redevelopment agency. Well, and so we set a couple objectives. So the first objective was we wanted to preserve the redevelopment agency. Well, that didn't quite work out because on February 1st of this year, a couple weeks ago, the redevelopment agency went away. But we kind of had a backup goal as well because we knew that we were in danger and that it might not work out. So we said our backup goal is to protect every asset that we could possibly protect, every way we could possibly protect what the redevelopment agency was going to do for the city of Morgan Hill, we would try to implement. And our staff has just done a phenomenal job of doing that. It's still in process. We're not done yet, but things are really, really great. We have to reflect, and this really hit me hard. I was at a function 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I ran into Peter Leroy Munoz, who's a city council member in the city of Gilroy, at the function. And I was belly aching because we were doing a lot of things to try to jerry-rig our RDA this way, that way, and it was just driving me up the wall, and I was complaining like crazy. And Peter looked at me and said, "But you guys have a redevelopment agency. We never had one. You are so lucky." So I think it's worth remembering that everything that it has done for us. You know, it supports our affordable housing. 2,000 affordable units were created in the city of Morgan Hill. 10% of our entire housing stock was rehabbed. 500 first-time home buyers were helped through the program. In terms of projects, our whole downtown, the first iteration of our downtown, we hope to be able to maintain enough to be able to do the second iteration. We built this community center that we're sitting in with the aquatic center, the Centennial Recreation Center, the Outdoor Sports Center, and the library with RDA funds. Butterfield, West Dunn, the overpasses at both Dunn and Tennant, and just a lot of street refurbishing, upkeep, many things. It's helping us on our flood control, doing the design of the flood control project. I can go on and on with everything that the redevelopment agency has done for us, and we need to reflect that we are so fortunate to have had it. And I didn't mention business assistance, but that is definitely something that's really benefited a lot of the businesses here, the facade, so that the downtown looks better and those kind of things. But now the RDA is no longer with us as of February 1st, so it's time to put it in the rearview mirror. And in putting it in the rearview mirror, there's just all kinds of considerations that we're still finagling and going through with the creation of an oversight board. The analysis, we had our usual city council meeting on February 15th, and one of the items on that agenda was what is the impact for the rest of this year between now and July 1st of losing the RDA and making budget adjustments for that. And then we'll be doing that whole process through the next year budget cycle to really revamp the whole budget process itself to reflect the lack of a redevelopment agency. But we are, as a city, are the successor agency. We are the successor housing agency. We've got to figure out how all that gets supported and set up. We've got to figure out some of the project priorities. I'll talk about that in a minute. We transferred a lot of the assets of the redevelopment agency into something we created and called a Economic Development Corporation. And we are in the process of making that as independent of the city as we possibly can so that it can be preserved. So in terms of what we are still trying to get done with redevelopment funds that we have committed is a lot of work in the downtown. That downtown was really kind of the last step in the ultimate, thing that we were going to do with our redevelopment agency. So we still want to get as many of those things done as possible, and have committed our funds from the bond proceeds. We sold $110 million worth of bonds. We have about $19 million of those proceeds left to deal with, and we want to address those to downtown parking, a lot of the side streets, the streetscape on side streets and on Monterey. We want to have some of the funds set aside. We can, according to regulations, set aside some of those funds for business assistance. Not really enough, but some, so we're going to do that. And then other kinds of improvements to medians and so forth that we're still looking at. Okay, that's the RDA and what we're doing. That's taking a lot of our time right now and will for a little while into the future. But guiding us through this process is something that we put in place 4 or 5 years ago. I forget when we first started it. We call it our sustainable budget strategy. So it's the mechanism that we use. What we do is we forecast the future in terms of where we think we'll be in terms of sales tax and property tax income and those other smaller sources of income over the next 5 years. And using those forecasts, which are updated periodically through the year, but we updated it at the beginning of the budget cycle and use that as our guideline to make sure that we never get below an absolute minimum level, 15% of our expected revenues. We never get below that level in case of an absolute disaster kind of situation that occurs. So we budget to that so that we can never get ourselves into the kind of situation where we have to, what was it, Stockton today I read was thinking about bankruptcy. So we have a strategy that will keep us away from any kind of serious actions like that. And as I say, the budget is going to be a little bit better because the upward trends that we saw earlier. So the budget process is really central to a lot of things we do, and it's going to start in late April and go through the final approval cycle in June. We, last year, finally corrected something that we had sort of overlooked. We had not kept up, especially in the area of water and sewer. Down below, we hadn't kept up with our rates, and we needed to make some fairly radical adjustments because of that. And I think we learned a lesson from that, and that lesson is that not only for our rate structure, but for all the services that we provide, we have to be really on top of them in terms of making adjustments on an annual basis. And we can use the budget process to educate, to inform, and to make everybody in town realize, here are our limitations in terms of income, and here's the way that we can do them, and here's the alternatives, and here's what we have to do to maintain our infrastructure so that we will not get ourselves into any kind of serious problems. So we've kind of adopted a goal this year, and you'll see it in the paper, that talks about the budget process as really a vehicle to get people engaged, have the kind of dialogue, the input that we need from you. If we're going to say we need additional revenues in order just to balance our budget, you need to understand that. You and every other person in the community needs to understand that. And we need to educate you so you can help us make those kind of decisions in terms of what's the best way to get the additional revenue and those kind of things. So that's one area of engagement, and you'll see a few others as I go forward. General plan update. We've had a general plan in place for a little over 10 years now, and recommendation and smart planning kind of process always says about 10 years is the length of time that you want to go before you update your general plan and renew it and reinvigorate it. So, we do have a plan to get an updated general plan, and we're going to try to figure out how to do that in a way that's a little less all-consuming than the way we've done it in the past. We put together, I think I was in the General Plan Update Committee on, I think, 1987. It started, and I think we had 30 members of that General Plan Update Committee. A broad section of the community was represented, and of course you had to have consultants come in to moderate and to direct the whole thing and those kind of things. We don't have the funding to do that, plain and simple. We've got to find a better way to do it and a simpler way to do it. So we're going to work on that over the next couple of months, hopefully come up within the next couple of months with a more efficient and effective, sooner way to update our general plan. One of the objectives we have in updating our general plan is, as it's known today, residential development control system consists of doing things like doing all kinds of very detailed design work, submitting many, many copies of plans that go to a committee of the city that is put together to review those plans in detail, assign points to them, and so forth. And then if they measure up and get the highest number of points, then they can get allocations to build dwelling units. And that's kind of the way the process works. And that process has served us very well since 1977. 1977 was when Measure E was first passed, and that was the original growth control ordinance. But it is not serving us well today. We had to do something a few years ago, put a measure on the ballot, Measure A, because we had designs to do things downtown that we couldn't do because we were hindered by the residential development control system process that we had in place. In terms of the economy that we were familiar with going forward into 2007, all those allocations that we made every year definitely got built. There was no problem, no backlogs built up or anything like that, but when the economy tanked and building just almost totally got frozen here in town for a couple of years, all of a sudden we had huge backlogs, and then how do you get those backlogs built down and so forth. So those kind of problems have cropped up. And so we want to figure out, we don't ever want to get rid of the idea of a targeted population. We do want to control growth in the community. There's no question. I think the whole council is totally dedicated to that. But we want to find a more effective and efficient way to do it. The thing I didn't point out about all that work that those developers did to win the points, in almost every case, those projects get totally redesigned anyway after the fact, because by the time they get to the point where they're going to actually build a project, the demands have changed. People want things different, so they have to get redesigned and relaid out and so forth and so on. So those kind of problems we need to address. And we think we can address them through this general plan update process and find a way to still maintain growth control, still maintain a population cap and have that as a goal, but not have the process that's become too cumbersome as we go forward into the future. So, we want to have master plans for our infrastructure. That's part of the trouble we got into with our water and sewer rates. We hadn't looked forward enough to have infrastructure master plans in place so that things get replaced on a regular basis and so forth. We also, looking still have as an objective, and this by mid-year now, to identify property for baseball. We have the soccer fields. Jeff is managing out there for us and managing very well, but they are soccer, they are football, they are lacrosse, and those kind of things. You can't play baseball on them. And we have a huge demand in this community for baseball fields. And we do have park money set aside so that we can find the land. We may not be able to develop it, but we want to get the land to make sure that we have that as a direction. Okay, that again, I've thrown out some things, people kind of hold this whole thing of growth control as kind of it used to be the one big issue in Morgan Hill was growth, and it still kind of is. Everybody believes that we need to have growth control, and we don't dispute that. We just think we need a different system, but is that going to be acceptable to the public? Again, want to engage and have dialogue on different approaches we can take and get your reaction to those kind of things. I told you that David Swing, our new chief, came in and was presented with a lot of challenges just in terms of the daily workings of the police department, but he also came in with a bent towards strategic planning, which is kind of new to our police department, and putting into place something that we call outcome-based strategies, so that we don't, necessarily design to how many officers per 1,000 citizens we have, or that kind of thing. We are more concerned with what is our crime rate? Do people really feel safe within the community? We want to go out and poll people and find out whether they're safe. I think it's a very safe community, as we showed you with the statistics, but we want to make sure that people feel safe and get their reaction to things. If they don't, how could they become more and things like that. Also in the police department, VIP is not a very important person. It is volunteer and policing in the city of Morgan Hill. And volunteer and policing program is just kind of getting kicked off. There's a training program you can go through. You can get involved with the police and help us out as a city in many, many ways. Many things that can help the sworn officers alleviate their workload can be done by volunteers, and they're taking a great approach to doing that training and getting people in place to do that. Our whole economic development strategy was based on the redevelopment agency. Now we don't have the redevelopment agency, but we still have the same basic philosophy as we've expressed the past couple of years about economic development. And it says that we want to increase the investment, the private investment, through selling Morgan Hill. The quality of life here in Morgan Hill helps sell itself. So, just having Morgan Hill here and doing some aggressive marketing of it, but also having, public investment. So That's the part that we have to figure out how to replace, because that's the part that went away with the redevelopment agency. We no longer have that. To help us do that, and Hobby Lobby, which just recently announced they're taking over Mervyn's. We have a couple of companies like Tate who are expanding here in town. I mentioned the Kenworth dealer. We have had some successes this past year. We want to increase that, and the one thing that we kind of added for going into next year is we're going to do something with the businesses that are already here, that love Morgan Hill, that tell us the best thing they ever did was move down here. How can we engage them, get them to do some things? And our economic development staff has already produced a video. We're doing things like that to use existing businesses to help draw more. We're going to have some kind of forums that we're going to have for existing businesses where we solicit more help from them. We mentioned last year our thrust into developmental assets. It wasn't new, it was 10 years old. We actually adopted the developmental assets for youth 10 years ago. It was kind of reinvigorated last year with the buy-in of the school district. The new superintendent, Wes Smith, had a lot of background with the developmental assets, and he's really done a great job of promoting them, putting on some programs, having students participate, and so forth. So developmental assets are alive and well in Morgan Hill. I think everybody's learning more about the vernacular and so forth. And a couple of gentlemen, one of whom is here, Larry McElvain is here, and Chris Gioni, who's with the YMCA. They now have a regular forum on the third Friday of every month at 7 a.m. It's 7 a.m., it's early in the morning, but it's a 1 hour thing. They'll get you out in 1 hour. And it's an opportunity for all the organizations that have anything to do with youth to come forward and say, hey, here's how I'm using assets, here's what I'm doing to improve the quality of the youth in our community and so forth. And I was able to make it not this month, but last month, and I was just amazed. 7 o'clock in the morning, I expected 3 people, and I think there were about 30 people there. It's a very enthusiastic group, so we appreciate that that's an ongoing thing that we'll keep doing. I think we're going to do another program with the school district this year where we invite those same organizations that Larry's dealing with to come forward and just in an evening probably in this room talk about what they've accomplished over the last year so that we can see how this thing builds over time. I like this. This is 1956, right? I think it was 1956. So Dwight D. Eisenhower was our president. And the Congress at that time passed a law. It was called Public Law 566. And it said that the soil conservation folks were going to come down to Morgan Hill and build a flood control channel. And it's now 2012. And that flood control channel has to be built from the river up, the river being the Pajaro River. It has to be built from there up, and it was built through in the early 90s through Gilroy up into the southern part of St. Martin, but it never got any further. And we have been trying to do that. I said that we put some of our redevelopment money toward the design. The design is ongoing. We have not quite sure what the council support, but the federal support is just not there. It still is not there. So I gave that a thumbs down, indicating that even in the latest budget, the work plan, it was transferred from the soil conservation folks to the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers has absolutely no budget right currently to do that. But kind of the good news is that with Zoe Lofton coming back as our Congresswoman, she's been our Congresswoman before. She's fought very hard to get this project done. In fact, she's the one that transferred it from the soil conservation folks to the Corps of Engineers so that it would get done. And I was able to talk to her last week, and she's still absolutely committed to helping us get this done. So, unfortunately, I don't have good news on flood control yet, but we have not given up, and we are not going to give up. We're going to keep plugging away. We have a meeting with the Water District tomorrow morning, so we'll be talking about it. This is something that we've been working on for quite a while, the Southeast Quadrant. We have a plan for the Southeast Quadrant to make it as open as possible and as agricultural as we possibly can. That's kind of our plan shown there. We released something called an agriculture mitigation strategy for the entire city of Morgan Hill that talks about what kinds of things we will do to preserve agriculture. And we're kind of targeting the agriculture that we want to preserve to the southeast quadrant, the southeast being kind of south of San Pedro Avenue, you know, that whole sector down there east of the freeway. So the whole area east of Tennant and down south. What I'm showing here is this is kind of the plan that we're putting forward. There is a plan for a Catholic high school to go in that blue zone. There are some existing dwelling units already on some of the properties. There's a plan to put some more dwelling units out there fairly remotely, but there's a plan to keep a whole bunch of it as prime agriculture and open space. What's shown up here is what the landowners, this was put together by some of the landowners that are kind of helping us on this, and that says, what if we just let it go and let be built there, what can be built there, what is permissible there, because there are certificates that allow people to build one house on every 10 acres kind of thing. And this, to me, is just the continuation of San Martin, what's happened in San Martin. It's the ranchettes, you know, 10-acre ranchettes versus more extensive open space, but more extensive open space and sports, recreation, and leisure space that is congregated, and you know, some areas along the freeway are allowed to develop. There is some housing allowed to develop. No more total housing than would be allowed with the certificates that would allow the ranchettes to be built. So we think the southeast quadrant is a very interesting thing because it's quite controversial. There's a lot of people that don't think we ought to do anything there, and that's what we think will happen if we don't do anything there. So again, this is an area where we want engagement. We want to have a lot of conversation. We don't want to do what the community does not want to have done. We want to do it right, and we want to get a lot of input and make sure that we're going the right way in the southeast quadrant. So there'll be a lot of opportunities there as well. Okay, so that's the bulk of my presentation. I just wanted to kind of tease you a little bit at the end. And I'd love to be able to have this conversation tonight, to really ask you these questions tonight. But what I'm really just kind of throwing out there is can we have some conversations? If you will come to my copies, if you think there's enough demand for it, we'll put some sessions together to be able to do these kind of things. I said on 3 of my charts, I said when we talked about the budget that you should get engaged in that. You know, how would you support new revenues? You know, can we justify that through the budget process? Or as many people say, there's absolutely no way to justify additional revenues. On the general plan, you know, is it okay to replace the RDCS, the Residential Development Control System that we have today? On the southeastern quadrant, do you want contiguous open space? Do you want active agriculture? Is the sports, recreation, and leisure kind of zoning that we're proposing down there a good deal? That'll put a lot of open space, but also cars need to park for those kind of uses and things like that. So there's a lot of questions there. So, you know, on the budget, the general plan, and the southeast quadrant, just encourage you to get engaged and help us on those areas. Those are areas where the council, I think, would all appreciate everybody's thoughts, support, and input. So that's it. Again, we live in a great community. We all live here because we want to live here. And with that, I'll ask if anybody has questions.
Good job, Steve.
Does that mean everybody wants cookies? Yes, Annette.
What's going to be done with the old city hall? What has been done? I know you were planning on trying to do a school or rent it out or something. What's the new status?
We don't have a detailed plan yet. If somebody wants to rent it, that would be wonderful. We talked to them right away. There's been no discussion yet by the council as to whether we'd be willing to sell it or not, but that's a discussion that I think we need to have. Yes, Mike?
Well, I've been involved for several years with the downtown visioning process. I go to the meetings where we voted for the 2-lane, the 4-lane, and what to do with the median and everything. And then I went to a meeting after we hired some consultants where they told us that the whole linear park vision had been scrapped and we were to start over. And unfortunately, that first meeting that we were to start over happened the same day as the Joint Powers meeting, or the same evening. So there were like 3 people there. I thought it was a colossal waste of time. And I didn't understand why we scrapped the first idea.
The first idea on the linear park, that process just started.
Okay, but hasn't it kind of been an ongoing discussion of what we'd like to see our downtown look like?
You mean the 2 versus 4 lanes and the median and all that, or?
Right, and the kind of location of the linear park. But I think linear, I did envisioning.
Yeah, we're trying to get rid of that vernacular because a lot of people are visualizing a linear kind of space where we were really talking about recreational or leisure uses in the downtown, which could be linear, but they could also be concentrated and so forth. So.
Yeah, well, I was just really disappointed. You know, I went to both meetings, went to that one first, and, you know, there were only 3 people there, and then the other meeting, and it was a real shame that it couldn't have been.
One of the problems that we have with this whole idea of engagement is everybody wants to help and contribute, but you have to find the evenings or the times that don't conflict with something else, and that is darn near impossible. So we'll keep trying. We'll schedule more of them because we still want the input on what we call the linear park that's really those uses downtown. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you all being here.
What